What is going on, guys? Keen Flame here, back with another YouTube video. And today we got Kiluminati against ISYMFS. So Kiluminati just dropped me a couple of replays in the Discord chat without saying a word. And I'm gonna check these replays out because if he doesn't say a word, he doesn't probably want to spoil the game. So this must be some interesting and spicy stuff. So yeah, let's get into it, right? And I got a lot of positive feedback on the coaching video that I did. I'm not sure when this video that I'm casting right now is going out, but yeah, I got a lot of positive feedback. So I'm gonna, approach these games, even the casted games, with a more coachy style approach, because I feel like most of you guys watching are not really high elo rate. Like probably like a few players obviously are, right? But it's gonna be the minority. And I think most people are just like around 100, like 1,000 or 1,200 elo, right? And I think what you guys need is not really like the build orders. Well, I mean, obviously it's important, right? Like for example, he sent one villager to wood right here, right? And why that is because he wanted to get the early pickaxe, right? And on ISIS, the upgrades are cheaper. So you only need to gather 10 wood from this tree, then you can get pickaxe right away. Then you move the wood villager back to the gold mine or the food, right? In this case, the food, because the food is closer, right? And that's another, topic, that the walking time, right? 1,000 elo player, he might walk this villager from the tree all the way to the gold mine. And when you're walking from this tree to this gold mine, you're losing resources, right? So don't do that. Just send this guy, this villager right here, to the food instead, right? And then a new villager can go to gold if gold is what you need, right? So Alfheim, right? Very defensive map, very narrow map. So it's not a bad ISIS map, right? Because Egypt is a little bit more defensive, but this particular spawn is actually very, very like not narrow at all, right? Like all the mountains are on the side, on the edge of the map, as you can see. Normally there's like mountains in the middle as well. But this is kind of a unique spawn, and I think this benefits Uranus a lot more than it does for ISIS. So I'm very curious to see how Kiluminati adapts to this map, right? So I like his obelisk placement already, because getting like vision and like information early, like the earlier you can get the information, the more you're gonna get out of it, right? So right now, okay, he sees he's switching, 2 villagers to gold right here, another villager to gold. So this tells him that probably Uranus is advancing right now, right? He got his temple up. He got his temple up also in a defensive placement. So this is going to be hard to rate, right? There's a manor right there, probably a sky passage later on, right here. So it's definitely going to be hard to rate this location. So let me see what Kiluminati advances with. Is he going with the Sphinx raids? Is he going with Anubis? Against Atlantean, in the original, I would say, you could kind of match a rating with the Anubites, right? Like, like make a few Anubites on low-hand maps, and then, take the TC, and then like play barrack units, maybe make some X-Men or something, right? But yeah, we'll see what he does this game. So he is going with Anubis, like I said, right? So let me see. So I really like his obelisk placement. Like he is just, like circling around the Uranus' base, and he knows exactly, where the Uranus player is gonna put the sky passage down. He sees this already, so he knows like, okay, I need to, at least like send, a few Anubites right there, push him off the free hunt, and then I think he's gonna make another obelisk on this side as well. So man, these obelisks are very, very good. He can immediately see that this guy is taking a second TC. You guys see that? So again, right, scouting is so important, guys. Like imagine if you put his obelisk like right here in the middle. He wouldn't have known any of this. He would have had to walk his Anubite all the way to here just to check if he is taking a second TC or not, right, guys? So, and now he can drop the serpents as well, slowing this down a little bit. But what you guys might not know is that the serpents actually don't do that much damage to villagers anymore. And the villagers can actually kill these serpents very easily too. So this is kind of honestly a waste from Kiluminati on these villagers. It's not going to do much. But yeah, I think, well, I don't know. I think he probably should have saved it. I mean, it's definitely, a little bit annoying, but yeah, the TC is just gonna, shoot these snakes down eventually. So here's the Pharaoh, right? So a question for you guys, right? Is this worth it right now? Like, yes, he did kill a villager, right, with the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh does quite a bit of damage. So, the earlier you send it, the more damage it's going to do, right? Because as you can see, he won a second TC, right? So this is the reason why he sent the Pharaoh. He knows, like, okay, it's going to take a while, right, for the Uranus player to make some military units. So it's like, okay, I can, abuse this window and send my Pharaoh as well, get the villager pick. But there's also a downside to it, right? Like, what if this guy was a little bit better and, defended this villager and made sure he didn't lose the villager? Then Kiluminati would actually lose a lot of resources just sending his Pharaoh forward, right? So you kind of gotta, weigh it against each other. Like, is this worth it? Because this Pharaoh, it could be empowering the granary or the mining camp right now as well, right? So you gotta think to yourself, like, okay, what is more important? Like, deny my opponent resources right now with the extra Pharaoh, or getting a little bit more resources myself, right? So you always have to, think about the cons and the benefits of all the actions that you're doing every game, right? And honestly, Kiluminati is a little bit of a, like a Gen Z player, if you will, right? Like most AOM players, right, are kind of old by now, like my age, like almost 30 or older, right? But Kiluminati, he's still kind of young, like he's in his mid-20s, and he plays like 1-2, like he has, still the fire in his tummy, with these like extra walls on top, and yeah, he's playing very, like a funny play style, like this, like really creative, right? Really fun. So he's still in the relic as well. That's a pretty good relic for the X-Men, right? And honestly, I really think that classic Egypt is really underrated right now. Like, especially if you play very, very aggressive, like you up very fast. And then, like, just upping very fast though is not enough, right? Like, you need to get an advantage first. Because if you do not get an advantage as Egypt with your classical army, then you're going to get outskilled, right? It's just not that good. But for example, with Set, if you do an early shift in Sands or a Serpent's play, right, and you get a few villager picks, that means you'll be ahead for the rest of the game, right? As long as you keep making villagers and you keep up the pressure, you'll get ahead, right? So what should you do when you are ahead in the game, right? At this point, like, okay, so you killed some of his villagers, right? And you have probably more army. I would say Kiluminati probably has to make a little bit more army, like, and once he has that army lead as well, then, he can take a second TC, or, he can take, or he can go, heroic age, for example. So once you have a lead, you just make barely enough army to stay in that lead, right? And while you have more army, you can cancel making army and use those resources, to get a benefit elsewhere meanwhile. So for example, you can take a town star right here, or you can spend the resources on going heroic, or you can sneak in an economical upgrade, right? Or you can sneak in a armory upgrade. So what you guys have to do is get a lead first, and once you have a lead, you never let that lead go. You keep on the pressure, but you don't overdo it on the army. You don't overdo it on your economy. You try like sneak in little advantages here and there. It's kind of like playing poker, if you guys are familiar with that. Like, you don't win by making big plays. You win by stacking little advantages one by one, and eventually it will become like a really, really big advantage, right? So Kiluminati, he got an advantage, right, by placing his obelisk around his opponent's base, right? He got a little advantage by killing this villager right there. And, right now, he's having the army advantage, right, as well. So he's getting map control, basically. Like, he could have, he gathered all this hunts for free, basically, right? And he's, being able to put the pressure on the sides. So he's denying his opponent hunts. So these are all little, advantages and benefits that he's getting from, getting the early lead, right? So now he has the market and the armory up as well. So he's, trying to go heroic soon. He has pre-queued the heroic age. So in case you guys didn't know, right, you can right click any upgrade, including the H up. And once you have the resources for it, right, it starts firing up immediately. So honestly, I think Kiluminati had to follow up with a little bit more army. And I think you should also make a little bit more priests than, you know, just 2. I think you need like 4 or 5 priests. That really helps, especially, you know, against the Caladrias and the plants, right? And they can also heal up your army. So just having more priests in your army basically means you have to make less army in general. Like you can fight, go back, heal them up again, right? And then fight again. So you don't have to spend as much resources if you have, you know, like 4 priests in your army like he does right now, right? So he's actually listening to my advice. He's like thinking the same thing, you know, like great minds think alike. Not to sound too egotistical though, but yeah. So he's, you know, doing the same thing that I'm saying basically, right? Like, and a lot of top players think this way as well. So just, you know, getting the healers out and, you know, healing your army up at the same time, you know, you can get more out of your army without having to make, you know, more units. So, and you can, and again, right, you can spend those resources elsewhere. Then, like, for example, you can take a TC or you can go heroic, right? And I think at some point in this game, he probably should have taken a TC sooner because yes, you know, Egypt's classical army is very strong, right? And yes, you know, he can go for a gold star very soon, but I think you can do all of this at the same time as taking a TC, right? I think if he, you know, paused army for a second, you know, just hold it on in the middle, he could have, you know, for example, like took this TC, for example, right? Like this TC is very, very good. It has access to 2 gold mines right next to it. But for example, if you take this TC, there's not much around it, right? There's like some wood. So this TC is not very useful. But this TC is very, very good. And, you know, when you have map control, you are actually allowed, you know, to take this TC without any punishment most of the time, right? If you have more army, you can defend it. But for example, if you are in the shoes of the blue player, you can like never take this TC, right? Like that's like suicide pretty much. Like you can only take this TC. So what Kilu has to do right now is go for gold starve, right? Because blue has been on 2 TCs for, you know, a pretty long time, and you can see on the top right that he has a lot more villagers than Kiluminati does. So Kiluminati, you know, right now the big advantage that he has is being on 1 TC still, you know, and having the bigger army. So this means, you know, he can just sit out here and just wait for blue to come, and blue has to, you know, somehow like, you know, get enough army to contest this gold mine. And if he doesn't, he auto loses the game. And this is what I said in a video before, right, in a coaching video, that this game is like chess, right? You can checkmate your opponent. Like the other AoE games, the Age of Empires 4 and 2, gold is not as important as in AOM, because in those games you have these trash units, right? And these trash units, they don't cost gold, but in AOM, every unit costs gold. Like even these slingers, the spearmen, the axemen, right? They all cost gold. So if you don't have gold, you lose the game, right? So it's a legit win condition, you know, to just play 1 TC and, you know, just wait for your opponent to come out, right? But you'll probably lose to a 2 TC strategy though if you do not do any early damage, right? Or for example, if he goes 2 TC fast heroic, then it will be tough to hold as well, right? Because the power spike, like the power spike of the chaos or the satyrs, right? So you have to make sure to, you know, stack the little advantages up 1 by 1 and then, you know, push for the win. So it all comes down, you know, to contesting the right objective at the right time, right? And here you can see it's all about this gold mine right there, right? Like if blue secures this, he's probably going to win. So he does actually, you know, secure this gold mine with the sky passage. So from this point on, it's going to be very, very hard for Kiluminati to win this game, right? So let me see. And that's what I said before, right? I think Kiluminati should have sneaked in a TC at some point because, you know, he did have map control. So, you know, he could have taken this TC and then with all the villages, you know, that went to gold from this TC, he could have taken another TC because, you know, he would have doubled his villager amount with, you know, going to TC. And then, you know, you could go for the 3rd TC as well and then, you know, make even more army and have this like enormous death ball Egyptian classical army, right? With the priests, slingers, the X-Men, right? And I think the strategy is honestly better on set than it is on ISIS, because on set, right, like you can put a monument right there, and the monument of set, it will make all the barrack units cheaper, so it's even more cost effective, right? So you are basically ahead by just doing nothing. Only by putting a monument up, you are already ahead because your units are cheaper, right? So that's also an advantage by itself. So here Kiluminati is going heroic. He also took the TC, so it's very nice. But again, right, I think he could have taken this TC faster. And apparently, this is something I learned recently, that when you upgrade your walls, it actually gives a little bit of a vision. You can see right here, right? So normal walls, they do not give vision, but the upgraded walls, they actually do give vision. And man, I gotta say, like, to the people, you know, who are a little bit higher elo, like this looks so fucking troll. Like I just have to say, like these upgraded walls so close to enemy's base look so super troll. And yeah, here comes the ancestors, right? So this is another power spike, right? So Kiluminati has another chance to win this game, because these ancestors, right, you can spawn right on top of the Atlantean army and actually take down his Caraballistas, right? And honestly, they didn't do too much, but you know, these slingers are putting in work. Holy shit. Like even without the electron bullets, right, from Ptah, because, you know, ISIS doesn't have access to that OP tech, right? It's still really, really good. And you can see, right, the ancestors that are left are just chasing down these Caraballistas, and they took down one. And Caraballistas are really, really expensive. They are 150 wood, 100 gold, right? And 4 population. So they're also very inaccurate. So they shoot a lot of arrows, but to balance that unit, they're not very accurate. Like the shots miss a lot, right? And it just spreads out. So to counter those Caraballistas, you should actually use the spread formation on your archers and on your army, right? So the more spread out your army is, the more shots are gonna miss, right? But if your units are clumped up like this, then the Caraballistas will hit more of their shots, right? So make sure against units that, you know, like shoot multiple projectiles, you want to split up your army, right? And by the way, sorry guys if I sound a little bit sick. You know, I just woke up feeling a little bit sick, but you know, it's fine. So yeah, so at this point he is kind of sandwiched, but the camels are coming in at the right timing as well. So, you know, maybe he can make this work here. And it seems like Blue's units are just dying one by one. So even on ISIS, slingers might actually be pretty good. And he does have the ballistics upgrade too, which make the slingers, you know, hit 100% accuracy. So, you know, that's also the reason why I think Caraballistas do not get ballistics, because, you know, that would be too OP. Because, you know, Caraballistas, they shoot so many arrows at the same time, right? Like imagine if Caraballistas could get ballistics, right? Like that would be insanely overpowered, right? So, you know, here Kiluminati is taking the 4 TC as well. And honestly, Kiluminati played very well, but I think he could have played even better, you know, if he sneaked in the TC even sooner, and, you know, then took the other TCs as well, you know, even faster. And then, you know, it could have been even a bigger win, you know, than it already is right now, right? So it just shows you, like, you know, even the very best players like Kiluminati, right? You know, there's still a lot of, you know, room for improvement as well, right? And, you know, I did notice, right, like his macro was a little bit, you know, sloppy, but you can see, you know, on the top, this is what I talked about before, right? I mean, I know the Uranus player, right, like is starved out of gold, so, you know, he has no choice but to, you know, put those citizens on the wood, right? That's why he has a lot of wood. But at the same time, right, like, make sure, you know, not to float this many resources. Like, this is way too much, right? Like 3k wood, 1,000 food. It's too much, right? But yeah, I think, you know, what this Atlantean player should have done this game is, you know, not blindly go to TC. Like first scout a map, right? And then you have to realize, you know, that the middle is actually very, very open. So this map wasn't very wallable. And there was also no safe gold mines, right? Like this settlement had no safe gold mines. So I think 2TC on this variant of this Alfheim was not a good idea. He probably should have went, you know, 1TC first, then, you know, make a little bit of army, you know, secure your map control. And after that, you can take a TC, or after that, you can go heroic, right? So first get your lead on the map, then take a TC, especially on maps, right, where the gold mines are not safe at all, like this map, right? then do not take a second TC right away. It'll be, you know, your death wish basically if you do that, right? Like this game. So I hope you guys learned a lot, right? And amazing play by both players. You know, Kiluminati is still, you know, winning the game on 1 TC. So amazing job. And, you know, if you guys want to, you know, watch his stream, make sure to check that out. I'll, you know, put it in the link below in the comments, right? And if you guys want coaching, make sure to DM me. I'll also put a link below for that as well. And, you know, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, boys. See you later.